Story 1. Well, the fire alarm went off when my kids were little. One boy is screaming like a banshee. I am out of bed, get the kids out on the front porch, start to wrangle parrots into carriers, all while completely naked, just to hear the neighbors apologize for burning breakfast. That was the last time I slept naked. Edit. So many people telling me I could have taken a second to throw on a towel, hang a bathrobe on your bed, and so on. The hallway and apartment fire alarms were blaring, so it wasn't obviously in another apartment. I could smell smoke. My son had sensory issues, and I tried so hard to practice, but he just panicked. 3 of 6 birds were out watching cartoons with the kids, flying around, freaking out and screaming. We spent 13 years in a 4-room apartment, so dashing to the crappy gas heater after a shower with a towel barely covering anything was common. I could talk about me being naked with my kids. We talked about all the troubles. I am a single mom. I was the only adult. My priorities were kids, then birds, then my dignity. Forget my life, I was seriously on autopilot. Story 2. I have slept naked for roughly half my life, starting in college at age 17. Unfortunately, I have had to stop for 2 reasons. First, my grandmother is in poor health, so I moved her into my place so that I can take care of her and spend more time with her. Second, I sleepwalk. Story 3. If you still live at home with your parents, one reason to consider is the potential for embarrassing moments. Imagine one day you're lying there, unknowingly exposing yourself to the world because you kicked off your blanket during the night. Your father enters the room to ask you to move your car from the driveway, and you accidentally flash him. Edit. I honestly wasn't expecting such a big response. Yes, it was a bit embarrassing at the time, but it is what it is. And yes, he did knock. The thing is, I'm a very heavy sleeper unless I know I need to do something like go to work or have an appointment earlier in the day. This incident happened to be on a Saturday morning, so I knew I had nothing urgent to do and didn't wake up the first few times he tried to knock and wake me up. Story 4. The elderly neighbor where I grew up slept without clothes. I am aware of this because his house caught fire and they brought his body out to the front lawn. There, everyone on the street who had come out in response to the emergency vehicles to understand the situation saw him in a very exposed state as they performed CPR on him. Rest in peace, Hank, but I do not wish to depart in that manner. Story 5. I had a big loving cat once cuddling next to me while I slept without any clothes on. I was slowly waking up and he did one of those big old kitty stretches and hooked a very sharp claw directly into my testicle. I screamed loudly. That is why I personally don't sleep without any clothes on. Story 6. The worst part of sleeping naked is when I sleep in on the same day a package is delivered. I'm jolted awake by a knock that sounds like the cops before having to find clothes to throw on while walking to the door. Story 7. As a woman, I don't need to bleach my sheets, my leg pillow, my dog that likes to curl up next to me for warmth, etc. Plus, have you seen ladies' panties from just healthy normal discharge? The whole bed would look like a few slugs and snails made a few round trips after a few days. No thanks. Story 8. 99% of these answers are lame. If you are a man and have a cat, and your penis moves in the middle of the night, the cat might think it's a mouse. This is just as probable as a tornado or being swatted for the average person. Story 9. If you have acne on your back, chest, or shoulders, wearing a clean shirt every night makes a huge difference. Also, wearing clean clothes to bed allows you to change your sheets less often. Washing underwear and socks is easier for me than my entire bed set. Story 10. I had a break-in once. It was worse than being naked. I was in a Pooh Bear situation, wearing a shirt with no bottoms. Do you know how ridiculous it feels to point a gun at someone while your flaccid anatomy is just bopping around in the open air? Story 11. People usually flatulate 5 to 15 times a day, so if you aren't wearing underwear, that is going directly into your sheets. I understand if people change their underwear once or twice a day, but how often do you change the sheets that you were sleeping in? Story 12. None of these answers can outweigh the fact my garments or pajamas get tangled up around me when I sleep, made worse by my night sweats. I can't get good sleep in anything other than being fully nude. Story 13. Kids, overnight guests, house fire, sinkhole, floods, earthquakes. The best part is having naked feet, no socks, and ice-cold feet in the middle of your partner's back. Story 14. I used to sleep naked. I think hygiene is the only reason to stop sleeping naked. Instead of sweating into the sheet, you sweat into whatever you are wearing. Story 15. The neighbor picks up a guy at the bar who runs out to get something out of his car at dawn. He mixes up apartments and barges into your place. He insists this is the place he spent the night and still has a head full of substances. You have slept on the couch, and now you are trying to convince him to just leave. He's between you and the weapons you keep close to the door. You only have the blanket you slept in for defense. Story 16. Sometimes those little nuisances sneak up on you, and having underwear and sleepwear to soak up the initial drops can save your bedsheets. If those aren't a concern for you, consider spiders. Sometimes they go hunting around your bed and end up crawling on you. It's much less scary when you wake up and see one on a clothed part of you than it is when they're on bare skin. I speak from experience. When they're on bare skin, the chance of getting bitten is so much more of a threat. Story 17. Because sometimes the police enter your apartment without identifying themselves and begin questioning you because they came to the wrong apartment and you're bare, and they won't let you put some pants on because they are not behaving properly, and you're supposed to feel lucky that they didn't just shoot you on sight. Then, when they discover that they came to the wrong address, they admonish you for not locking your door. Hey, I don't worry about locking my door because the drug pushers and murderers in my building don't enter random people's apartments unannounced, because they at least have a little class. Unlike the police. Seriously, what kind of a police officer enters an apartment that they hear no noise from, silently without announcing themselves? Negative remarks about the police, and Rin said it with authority. So at least sleep with boxers on or something so you aren't exposed when the police break in. I'm not worried about thieves, hoodlums, itinerant murderers, serial killers, or any of that. It's the police I don't trust. I know my neighbors. That incident was many years ago. I still rarely lock the door to my house unless I'm leaving for the day. If someone wants in, they'll get in. Story 18. If there's a fire, I'll panic so badly from our unit's alarm and dystopian artificial intelligence voice system speaker that's in all the apartments that I'd legitimately fly through my door so fast without a second thought to grab a single item, let alone clothes. Also, my front door faces our bedroom. That thing sounds like it's from Squid Game. Even when they run the tests, I feel like I'm having a PTSD episode. Story 19. If you have REM sleep behavior disorder, which causes you to get up and run around your college dorm building in your sleep, kicking and flailing and shouting gibberish while half the university looks on in shock and awe, including the residential assistant who calls you in the next day to give you a talk about drug use, and you insist, "No, I wasn't on LSD. I just have this sleep condition, you see. I read about a guy like that once." Story 20. Supposedly, it's illegal where I live because the winters are very cold, and having to get out of the house in a hurry might cause some unfortunate frostbite. I do it anyway. If they want to ticket me for my clothing choices while my house burns down, so be it. Although, it does make Christmas morning in the pajamas a bit uncomfortable for everyone else. Story 21. It is really, really cold. And also, if your blankets are not very comfortable, then they will irritate you all night long. I did it once. I had a miserable night's sleep. Story 22. There are reports that if you sleep naked and have one foot out from under the blanket, gnomes will come and fondle or even taste test under there. I have never tried it, so I do not know, but it's a myth. Once again, just clarifying, I have never tried this at all. Story 23. I sweat so much when skin is touching skin for some reason. A t-shirt keeps me nice and cool. I'm also the type of person who never takes their bra off. I hate the feeling of my breasts sagging, especially when I'm lying on my side. I'll never buy that nonsense that going braless makes your breasts sag less. Story 24. I sometimes think that if I were to take ill in the night or even expire, it would be very awkward for all those concerned if my genitals were exposed during any resuscitation attempts. This does not stop me from sleeping without clothes in any way. It's just a vague concern occasionally. Story 25. Earthquake in California in the mid-1990s when we lived out there. I did what I was always told, got up and stood in a doorway. My mother-in-law was visiting. She must have heard the same earthquake advice. There she was, across the hall, standing in her doorway. I was completely naked. Story 26. Unexpected emergencies. If there's a fire alarm, or if you need to leave the house quickly in the middle of the night, it's a lot easier if you're already wearing something. Story 27. Most people sweat a bit in the night. If you wear something in bed, it protects the bed linen from absorbing all that sweat. It's easier to change and wash clothes than bed linen.